So today's tips are actually about biz and legal launch tips. Some of them are tried, tested. Some of them are because I have gone through so many launches and I have felt the pain. So I'm actually going to go through some really quick tips, and you want to stay tuned for all of them because they are super helpful and things we just might not think about, but we actually have to think about and implement as well. So number one, goes without saying, have a plan of action. I am about to launch something else into this world, and I was with my mastermind group yesterday, and they were just like, do you have a business plan for this? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because even though this launch is within my company, it's not like I'm launching something new or a new business or something that's totally separate from what I'm doing already, but you still need a plan of action. So a plan of action can just be your who, what, where, why, hows, and a quick SWOT analysis. And it can just be pros and cons, benefits, bullet points, whatever works for you, but have a plan of action, because that plan of action is what will make you keep going, and also how you can help market your business, because the more information that you have collected and the more ideas and the clarity you have, the more you speak with conviction. So plan of action is super necessary. So first and foremost, get that down. So because when you have a plan of action, you know which route to take. You know which direction to go to, right? So that kind of leads us to the next one is, once you figured out the plan of action, and you've written it down, you need to do some probably new hires, maybe somebody who's a launch expert, somebody who can really help gather all of that information and put it in one spot. So if you are having new hires during that time, there's two things that you really want to look at. One is vet them out. Make sure they are what they say they are. Make sure you've seen their work, seen some type of even testimonials about them or references about them, because it can really burn you during a launch time. I speak from personal experience. It is terrible when somebody either A, exits during launch time, or B, does it so badly because they say they know stuff, but the reality is they don't know it. And it's unfortunate because it truly hurts their reputation, but in the meantime, it's also hurting your business. So have a plan of action, know the kind of people you need to hire, if you need to hire new ones, or know that what your existing team members can do, and let them know, hey, this is launch time. I expect everybody to be on board during that time, because if you're not, or if you're going to say, I can't do it, it's going to hurt, again, you more than them just exiting at that time. So have that clarity and between your team members also. And if you are hiring somebody new, again, vet them out. And another thing that you want is a contract with them. Just because launch time is a short period of time usually, and you're like, oh man, why do I need a contract? But you do. You absolutely need a contract, so you know what your deliverables are. You also know what money that you are going to be giving them. You also know what the expectations are. So they know your expectations, they know your timelines and deadlines, and they can actually input that into the calendar and know how important launch time is. Because if anybody has gone through launch, you know behind the scenes, it is madness. It is chaos. And in order to kind of limit the chaos and limit the madness, really, truly, you want to vet your new hires or tell your existing team that, hey, this is what's going to be happening. This is what to expect. I expect all members on board at the time. So that way nobody is, feeling the pressure and then feeling like they just didn't sign up for that. And then number two, have a contract. Make sure the contract is pretty clear on the deliverables and also clear on the money and the timelines and everything that is super important to your launch. Even if it means do you know how to use a certain software or a certain tool? Because if they don't, that can be detrimental. Something as simple as MailChimp or, your email systems, or even Dubsado, do they know how to use it? Are you going to be able to use it? So have those things clearly stated and also communicated, and look at the referrals and their past work. Now, number three, after you have the plan of action, you kind of know the skeleton outline of what you need to do. You also know what things are important, what software you're going to be using, what, deliverables and, things that you need at the end for your launch to really work. So whether that is email sequences, or whether that is graphics for marketing, or whether that is just anything, like a phone number so you can send text messages out to people. You want to make sure that you have all those new hires ready to go. So that's number 2. And number 3, are your platforms ready to go? And so what that means is, what different platforms are you using for marketing, or what platforms are you using to organize your launch? Whatever that launch is, are you using something like Dubsado, or are you using something like just a simple Trello or something else? What are you using, and are they ready to go? I'm not saying get them ready to go all the time, because, there are times when things are just imperfect, and that's okay too. But what you really want to ensure is the legal behind it. So, for example, if you are going to be sending text messages out to your new people that are signing up, or the people that are signing up for your launches, and you're sending out text messages, have a form or a piece of, something online that they're agreeing to those text messages and they are happy to receive them. Because that way what you're doing is, 1, you're getting permission to send them text messages and marketing, but you're also getting permission to get their information, which is personal information, which I'm going to go into later on about the privacy part of this as well. But you're taking that extra step because it is protecting you and it's protecting them as well. And so it's super important that you're seeing the platforms. You're also seeing what is yours and what is not yours. If you're using something like Canva or some other type of platforms that are not necessarily your platforms, what is it that that platform is allowing you? Do you have a licensing agreement with them? Are you using the free version and do you just not get anything, but yet you're selling stuff that you've created on it? Are you allowed to do that? And so go into it a little bit, spend that extra 10 minutes reading that terms and conditions, or the licensing agreements, or the small little black letters, and everything in small writing, because those are the things that can make or break not just your launch, but overall your product or your service that you're offering later on. And so that kind of takes me to the privacy information, number 4. Privacy information is very important because all the states have their own privacy laws. And as we are going through time, the privacy is becoming more stricter. The way you're handling people's personal information that is given out to public like that, the strictness of it is being more enforced. And different states are coming out with stricter guidelines. So California is pretty strict. Colorado's coming out with something. Virginia's already come out with something. And then, of course, the GDPR, and then other countries like Canada, or, even in South America, and then other parts of Europe, and, even in Asia. So there's different privacy requirements. And so you want to make sure that you are complying with probably one of the most strictest ones, because that way you're kind of complying with all of them then, right? And so the rule of thumb is go to the most strict one, especially in the country that you're in. And so that way you are complying with most of them then, right? And so privacy information is very important, because what happens is when you're launching something, you might be launching a different product all of a sudden, or a service, and that product and service might require more personal information from your audience, or from your community, from your client, whoever you're targeting. And so now you want to make sure that your privacy policy is reflecting that. And your privacy policy is also reflecting what you're doing with that information, and who you're selling that information to or sharing that information with, and why you're doing that. So who, what, why, and how are very important. If you don't already have it, get to it and start doing it, because there are companies that are getting fined, and they're getting pretty hefty fines, especially from the EU. So don't think that just because you're contained in the States that somebody in the EU may not be impacted with your website, especially if it's something that's pretty broad and pretty much actively almost also where you're marketing to people outside of America or abroad. Make sure that you are complying with those countries' privacy policy as well. And then privacy policy kind of leads me into the terms and conditions. And so again, if there's changes in what you are doing with this launch, if there's changes in the way your refund or exchange policy is, or any disclaimers or disclosures that you might have, or even in general about intellectual property, any of these changes need to be reflected in your terms and conditions. And those changes are, again, very important to have in your terms and conditions, because especially if you're selling online, that terms and condition is essentially like a contract once they do a positive confirmation, meaning they are themselves confirming with a check mark and not an auto check for themselves. That way, you know that they are agreeing to your terms and conditions, and so you can always refer back to it if there is a problem and the terms and conditions actually addresses those issues, right? So you want to make sure that your terms and conditions updated just along with your privacy policy as well, with regards to whatever's happening with this launch of yours. Now, final thing that I was going to talk about is also probably one of the most important ones, and that is your contracts for your launch. Whether you include that information part of your terms and condition, or whether you need a new contract because it is a long-term relationship that you're establishing with your clients because of the launch, you need to have that contract. Now, whether that is automated online, or whether that is something that is a supplement to your terms and condition, and then this is like, hey, here's another contract, or it could be a contract that kind of regurgitates your terms and conditions from your website, but then also adds on some extra clauses because of the nature of this new relationship and the launch, then that's what you need to do. But don't forget the contract with your new clients and the new audience, or even existing clients that you might have, but don't forget the contracts with them, because that is probably one of the most important and also one of the most overlooked things that we do when we have a new launch.